Hello there, you're watching India versus Fake News. 16 days left for the 2019 general elections, and any political expert believes the world's largest democracy is headed for a khalbali of fake news. Move aside Rajneeti, it's the season of Fakeneeti. India is getting familiar with terms like confirmation bias and post-truth, where politics is taking place on emotions and not on facts. So today, while we expose the political fake news, we also ask who really is the watchdog of fake news this election season. And to help us answer that question will be Govindraj Etiraj, the founder of the fact-checking website Even Facebook has hired, Boom Live, and Rajneel R. Kamath, a former Google public policy representative. So let's get down to it. Let's start with what has really happened today. Well, the Bombay High Court asked some tough questions to the Election Commission, and this was all about those 48 hours, those crucial 48 hours before you will vote. So if campaigning for a phase, let's say, ends today, voting will be 2 days later. But what about the social media advertisements of fake news or posts during those same 48 hours? Who will monitor them? Should orders prohibiting political ads be passed by the Election Commission? Well, the Bombay High Court asked the Election Commission, why are you apprehensive to pass the order? Now, this is based on reports. The Election Commission responded and they said there was no apprehension. And a PIL, remember, just to give you some background about this case, a PIL has sought banning social media blackout during 48 hours before polling. Now, there are a number of questions that come up. I think let's just get started with this. Govind, I want to come to you first. The Election Commission, we know, has put in place a mechanism that any political advert has to be checked and verified. So why should it not be still in play during those same 48 hours?
So Amitoj, I mean, I don't have a background to why this PIL was filed, as in the PIL clearly seems to say that the Election Commission should be asking either the platforms or should be putting out an order specifically saying that all such ads should be banned for 48 hours. Now, I'm not familiar with the reasoning for asking for this, but I think the parallel seems to be that if it can be stopped on other platforms, including newspapers, then why shouldn't it be stopped on social media, which in theory seems fine. But I think there is a larger question here, which is the ability of the Election Commission or anyone to regulate content on really unregulatable social media platforms. And to the extent that the social media platforms are already collaborating quite efficiently in saying that we will only put up advertisements that are certified by you, the Election Commission, I think that's a great step. And it's happening not just in India, and in some ways it's happening in other parts of the world, including in Thailand. But the question, I guess the larger question is that can we regulate content that is fundamentally in the guise of misinformation, which is why we are talking about it today, and is creeping into the system and the information highways, so to speak, and therefore exposing the system's inability to counter it.
Right. No, in essence, what I'm basically asking is, it appears the High Court, the Bombay High Court, is asking the Election Commission that, you know, you can just put it out there. You can say with a clear ban that during those 48 hours, there will be no political adverts on any social media website that comes from a page that is linked to a political party registered or a candidate who's fighting the election. Why is that not happening? It's just a simple thing. Isn't that simple?
It should be. Like I said, I don't know the reason.
Right. Okay. Great. That's fine. That's fine.
So
now, I want to take the same question to you, Rajneel. Go ahead.
Yeah, Amitoj, I think one of the questions that we really need to answer is, while political parties may stop advertising 48 hours before, how are you going to control their proxies who might be advertising on their behalf?
Okay, let's leave that for later. I'm just asking a simple thing. Why can't the Election Commission pass that order?
They can pass the order. Can it be implemented, and do we have the wherewithal to implement it?
Do you think that's why they are careful about going ahead with the idea of even passing it?
Yes, they have to be careful, because if there's no wherewithal to do it, tomorrow the court will pull them up saying they didn't follow what they passed.
Okay, so that's an interesting point you made. I think
the Election Commission can simply ask the political parties to stop, whether it's social, physical, hoardings, print, television, and they will have to stop. Now, if the proxy army takes over, it takes over. So I think the parties are in the clear, the Election Commission in the clear. If we are discussing, is the larger objective achieved? Obviously not.
Okay, no, but you're a fact checker.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, but you understand fact checking. So my question is, even during that time, that 48-hour period, old articles, old fake news could resurface that would not at all be linked with these parties, these official parties, or candidates. So then how do you control that? What do you have to say to the people who are going to vote in those, they're going to be thinking about who to vote for in those 48 hours. What do you have to say to those people?
You can't, and this is a larger problem, right? I mean, we are at the age of the internet where we are still experiencing and maybe suffering from the controllable impact of high-speed dissemination of information, including fake news. There is no system in the world today which can control
I know,
this. So
but what will you say to the voter then?
There's no point in trying to blame the election commission.
No, not at all blaming. Not at all blaming. Not at all blaming. We're just trying to say that it is difficult, and people need to understand that, and they need to be responsible for the information that they believe. That's what I'm saying. So, what is your advice to them as a fact checker?
To the election commission?
No, to the people.
To the people, I think it's very simple. I think you have to be suspicious, cynical, and skeptical of every piece of information that you receive as a forward, as a post, as a share, as a mail that's sent to you today.
Okay.
And therefore view everything with an extreme degree of carefulness, and be aware that someone somewhere is trying to trick you or could be trying to trick you.
Okay.
It's exactly the way many of us are aware about financial scams and the likelihood that someone is phishing us to retrieve information about our banking statements or our passwords and so on. Even that is not a problem that's been solved, but more of us are aware.
All right. Okay.
Similarly, in this case, we should be aware that like we might get a phishing request, we might get a request or a post or a share or a forward that has some degree of political or communal or social messaging couched in it, which is aimed at influencing our voting decision.
All right. I think that was beautifully said, by the way. Rajneel, it's interesting that this advice has been given. Will it be, is it something that you think will be taken by the people of India and actually accepted and acted upon? Is it realistic to believe that this advice could be acted upon?
So, it is our fundamental duty to develop a spirit of inquiry and reform. We are in a very politically charged environment. So, I genuinely hope what Govindraj is
I didn't ask about your hope. I asked, do you think it's going to happen?
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be vigilant and they will check now, especially if they're skeptical of everything they receive, then I'm sure a lot of people will start checking.
All right. Now, we were talking about that simple aspect about who really is the watchdog for fake news in this election season. Now, the latest Reuters Institute India Digital News report asked the question to its 100+ English educated and mostly male respondents. So, they themselves are admitting in a sense that it is slightly skewed, the sample for this survey, the people that they have actually spoken to. But they asked who is responsible for fixing disinformation issues. Not just who is the watchdog, but who is responsible for even fixing disinformation issues. And the findings are telling, as it was found, that most find that publishers, platforms, and the government, so publishers being news agencies, news networks, media platforms, and of course platforms being Facebooks, WhatsApps, Twitters, and share chats, all of those that are working with the election commission, and of course the government being the government in charge in each state, and of course in the center. They are all equally responsible. 66% believe that publishers are responsible, 64% believe platforms are responsible, and another 64% also believe that the governments are equally responsible. So more or less, everyone's responsible according to the people. Now that's critical. So I just want to take that again to the both of you. What does that tell you? I think this is a tricky one, because I would have imagined, as I think I come into the category of publishers, we were not that responsible, but it is actually appearing that those who are watching any kind of information flowing, they are saying that you, the media, are more responsible for giving us the news. And I'm going to take that to Govind.
No. So, Amitoj, are you asking me if you, NDTV, are spreading fake news? Is that your question?
Well, it appears very interestingly out here that they are slightly more concerned about us than they are about, the platforms.
So, obviously, because, see, the platforms these are technology platforms. They're of course changing and they're moderating more and controlling more, but they fundamentally believe that technology platforms are not editorial platforms or publishing platforms, and Google is not an NDTV. And therefore does not have a view on issue or a post or a video, as the case might be. Yeah. Whereas you, as NTV or any news organization, have in an inherent and an inbuilt responsibility of providing news and information with integrity.
Okay, hold that thought. One sec. Hold that thought. Yeah. Hold that thought. Now, that report also asked one question about whether they have concerns about disinformation, and it said that 57% are concerned about what is real and fake on the internet. That's important to say. 57% of the respondents said that they are actually concerned about what is real and fake on the internet, not on our platform, not as publishers.
Sure,
okay.
Sure.
And then they say that those who use Facebook and WhatsApp for news do not report higher levels of concern. They do not report higher levels of concern over whether the news they came across is real or fake. Now, how worrying is that for you, Govind?
No, it's not worrying. As in, are they those who? I mean, if they do not report higher levels of concern whether the news they come across is real or fake, it's to me it's a larger skepticism of the news ecosystem. You know, which is why the whole problem exists in the first place. If they all trusted media organizations and big media brands completely, then the question of whether they trust what's there on a WhatsApp or a Facebook would not arise to the extent that it is arising today. So I think that in some ways is a horse that has already bolted. It's left the stable.
Okay.
I think the question in some ways to ask is, where do people get their fake news or misinformation fix from? If I were to put it as bluntly as that. The answer is they do not get it from mainstream media. Mainstream media only contributes to maybe 2 or 3% of the misinformation flow.
Okay.
You know, and
thank you so much for
even
that.
Less than that. Yeah, okay. That's a fact. I mean, and maybe there's a bias because I'm also a mainstream journalist or have been one, or have a foot in that space. But mainstream media largely does not disseminate fake news deliberately because it has a platform to fall back on. And if you keep making mistakes, your audience loses faith in you and your advertisers lose faith in you, and therefore you have a serious problem. I mean, so you cannot be doing that. There is serious disincentive in peddling fake news as a mainstream media organization. On the other hand, if I was the proxy army or the troll army, deliberate or otherwise, working with a political party or a social cause, there is no disincentive for me to do whatever I want, and I can keep blasting it. And equally, there could be an incentive for me if I try to create some sort of divide, if I try and move votes in a certain direction.
Okay, so I just want to quickly, I get your point. Now, I just want to bring up Trump's tweet. Donald Trump just a few hours ago has tweeted this. Take a look at it. Once again, it's rather telling. He's very clear. The mainstream media is under fire and being scorned all over the world as being corrupt and fake. Okay. He's calling the mainstream media all over the world more or less fake. For 2 years, they pushed the Russian collusion delusion when they always knew there was no collusion. They truly are the enemy of the people and the real opposition party. The reason I bring this up is because, Rajneel, I want to talk about one thing, that it's not the reason there's a lack of faith in the media, the mainstream media, is because the most powerful man in the world is also questioning us and calling us fake. Yeah. So, I mean, what would you tell the people about that?
I mean, when you look at publishers, I think we should divide that into two. There are some publishers who come into existence because their only objective is to spread misinformation. So if the respondents were probably thinking about those publications, yes, then they probably do have some
but Donald
concern.
Trump is not thinking about that.
No, Donald Trump doesn't have to. For him, anything that doesn't go by his playbook is fake news, right?
Okay.
A lot of political leaders do have a little bit of ill will towards the media. A little bit might be an understatement.
Right.
But it's the media also has to take responsibility for certain aspects of how they report stories, right?
Okay, all right.
I mean, it's not like stories have gone which haven't been verified. There have been some stories which are not true or not authentic or not verified.
Right.
So, as mainstream organizations, that check has to be there because that's what they expect out of us.
All right, you talked about fact check.
I think it will fall down.
Yeah, I think the message is clear. Let's just go to one of our fact checks and tell you how this actually happens. This is something that Boom has done, Govind's team has done today. It's all about this fake news that we are calling out, about an 800 crore scam at the Kumbh Mela. Well, what has really happened? Madhya Pradesh's Congress on Monday morning fell for a satire article and tweeted a screenshot with the headline 800 crores Kumbh scam, accusing the Bharatiya Janata Party government in Uttar Pradesh of corruption. And that particular post got 130 likes and 70 retweets before it appeared to be taken down. Sanjay Singh of the Aam Aadmi Party then went on to tweet it. It got 637 retweets and close to 1500 likes before he deleted it. But by that time, a number of pro-Congress Facebook pages appeared to have already shared it numerous times. But take a look at the actual article posted by Amar Ujala on Holi as what appeared to be a joke, saying "Bura na mano, Holi hai." As the post indicated that the article was published in the Hindi newspaper Amar Ujala on the 21st of March 2019. Boom searched for the article on its website and found that it was a satirical piece on the occasion of Holi. So my question to both my guests, starting with Govind, is that if politicians who are in parliament like Sanjay Singh and of course the Congress handle in Madhya Pradesh believe it, what hope do we have?
It's a tough question for us to answer. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm the genius here and everyone else is an idiot. I mean, that's not fair.
Yeah.
This is the nature of fake news, right? It does get ingenious. It does get smarter. It does get, more sophisticated, as it has been getting in the last 2 years that we've been tracking it since the US presidential elections in November 2016. So people will fall for it. I think the question is that how do you instill in yourself that ultra news sense as a normal consumer, that I have to be very careful of what I trust. And it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to be cynical, skeptical, and careful about everything you see. And particularly if it comes on social media, because that typically is a regurgitation of something like this. Right? A lot of the fake news or misinformation today, Amitoj, is not something that's created in its original form. It's really taking something like an image, like a video, an article like this, and putting another context to it and then distributing it.
Right. Okay.
So even if someone were to find that image is true, there is an article like this. What is the fake part is really the interpretation that this is actually true and that this has happened, and therefore everyone jumps.
Joke. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Rajnil, I'm cynical about one thing, that the damage is done and it will continue to be done because people will actually not understand that it is satirical. What do we do about that?
Well, firstly, I think this article was poorly timed. If you want to do something for Holi or pull a April Fool's joke, there are a lot of other subjects which you can pick up rather than doing something right before an election. How do you prevent people from falling for this? Well, I think that's why there's Boom Live and a lot of other fact checkers who are there to set the record straight.
Right.
And the politicians who tweeted the piece of news which is fake, I think the responsibility is also on them to come and acknowledge that they peddled something that was not right.
All right. Okay. At least they deleted the tweet. That's the start. Previously,
and I think that's a very good point, Amitoj, that Rajneet made. I think that politicians have to be called out and they have to acknowledge, because they are a critical distributor in the supply chain.
Yeah, we actually had one politician come on our show when he had put out a tweet which was clearly fake, as it was fact checked by you yourself. And at that point, he had said it's not my responsibility. He had not taken it down. Sanjay Singh of the Aam Aadmi Party has taken it down. So that's the good news. On the other side, it gets worse because we actually fact checked this news that said that in Australia, an Apple company has named its apples after Prime Minister Modi. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. This is India versus fake news, and we are fact checking one simple thing. Would you believe it that in Australia, a company, well, that's the news. This particular news said that there have been apples that have been named after Prime Minister Modi. But what's the real take on this? Let's explain it to you. What was the claim? That this tweet said, and this Facebook page also obviously indicated that apples have been named. This was the tweet actually that said that apples have been named after Prime Minister Modi. And then there was a Facebook post which said basically the same thing. But the real page, this is the Facebook post, and the real page of basically tells you that very clearly these are apples that have been named after a company for a long time, and you can actually see the company's name on that page, and it's got nothing to do with Prime Minister Modi. It's just, well, it's been there forever. So let me just take this to both my guests right now and understand what is going on. Can you tell me, because I'm a bit lost, Govind?
No, so this is, I mean, without getting into the specific case, I think, there are people who are opportunists, and there are opportunists on both sides. I mean, let's not, state or believe that it's only one party or the other party. These are people who are mostly maybe have nothing else to do in life, or maybe this is part of a defined job description where they pick up things which are floating around, which could be images, which could be videos, and, do something in order to obviously make, in this case, Modi look good. And, it obviously helps add to the overall aura of a certain personality. In this case, you're saying, okay, Modi apples.
So you're saying it worked?
It will work with some people. That's the way this thing works. I mean, and I mean, we know the larger statistic that maybe 20% of the people who have seen this will see the counter to it saying that this is fake. So, or there are others who say maybe it's fake. Oh, but it's funny. I mean, you have a laugh and then you move on.
All right,
so,
Rajneel, do people believe this, and does it work, and has it already worked?
Well, I'm quite certain that a lot of them might see this and take it with a pinch of salt, because if everything that's named Modi is related to our Prime Minister, then I guess we also have a problem at hand with two people in London.
Okay, that's an interesting thought out there. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. This was an interesting one. It was all about the amount of fake news there is, and basically we asked that one question about who really is the watchdog when it comes to fake news in the coming election. Remember, 16 days left, and if you want to know about the real news, it's coming up on the other side with Manika. Don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for being with us.